Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Five Star Zone. I'm your host, Rico Beard, Big 10 Week 11 wrap up. And man, oh man, oh man, it's a heck of a games this weekend. Well, some games if you like excitement, and then there's some games if you like defense. The certain teams didn't really separate themselves a lot. As a matter of fact, when the College Football Playoff Committee convenes, I got a feeling that two of the Big Ten teams will drop in the polls. Let's just go right to the first one. The biggest game I think of the day was Indiana at Penn State, and Indiana going into Penn State. Look, Kurt Signetti looked like he has his team rolling. Indiana's coming in as the number 2 seed overall if the college football playoffs were to start today. But Penn State had a different thing in mind. As a matter of fact, Ethan Grunkmeyer, the quarterback, taking over for Drew Aller, really went out there and led a comeback with this Nittany Lions team. It looked like the game was going to be over. It looked like Penn State was just going to roll over and show their belly. But then all of a sudden, guys, in the second half of the game, Penn State charges back and goes from, the score is sitting there at 20-10. Penn State then scores 14 points, and before you know it, Penn State is leading. Penn State is up 24-20, and things just didn't look good. All of a sudden, Singleton just kind of carries his team on his back, and, he scores 2 touchdowns, and it looked as if Indiana was about to suffer their first loss on the road to a Penn State team that's already fired their coach, lost their quarterback for the year, really with nothing to play for, playing for pride, and that pride was showing up. The Nittany Lion pride showed up, and then Fernando Mendoza happened, and he may have solidified his Heisman campaign because he drives Indiana down the field, some spectacular catches by his wide receiver, and it caps off with a 7-yard touchdown to Omar Cooper, which may be the catch of the year. Cooper somehow manages to miss the back of the end zone with his right foot, but he hits it with his left foot. If the kid wore a half size too big, he would have been out of bounds, but he didn't. He fit right in, and there it is. Indiana escapes with the win. Mendoza may have had his Heisman Trophy moment with that touchdown, and Indiana walks away. Indiana walks away 27-24. I mean, Penn State's crushed. I honestly, I think they gave it everything that they had and more. I don't know how you pick yourself up after this game if you're Penn State, if you're Indiana, if you're Signetti. Look, you're in survive and advance mode, but just know that the committee's probably looking at this, and the committee will punish you. I don't think that they'll be number 2. If anything, Texas A&M will move up to number 2, and Indiana will drop to 3. But you won. You're still on pace to get a bye, and I guess that's all that really, really matters. If you're Indiana, I don't see any other close game. I think this will be the last close game that they have. After that, Indiana, let's take a quick look at their schedule. I don't think that Indiana will have to be bothered by anybody else. They finish out the year. Yeah, they finish out the year with with Wisconsin, and then Purdue. So I think Indiana will be fine. They'll have a bye week in between. So, yeah, Wisconsin and Purdue. Now, speaking of Wisconsin, what the hell happened to the Badgers? I've been sitting here saying that maybe Luke Fickell was going to get fired. Well, Wisconsin comes out and says, no. Not only will Luke Fickell not be fired, but the Wisconsin athletic director said Luke Fickell will be our coach next year. We're going to make some changes. We're going to make some promises. We're going to do some initiatives to try to get him better players and to really rally behind him and try to support him. I guess it worked, kind of, because Wisconsin played a ranked with Washington team. Washington, I believe, was ranked 23rd. And you probably wanted to bleach your eyeballs when the game was over. But Wisconsin wins the game 13-10. Maybe it's traveling from the West Coast to the East Coast. I don't know what happened to Washington. was on pace to maybe be one of to be that fourth team to go to from the Big Ten to go to the college football playoffs, those chances ended. Those chances are done. When you get beat by a team that only throws for damn near, 48 yards, and 24 of those come from a punter, yeah, that's not good. I don't know what happened to Washington. They just didn't look themselves. But this isn't the first time we've seen Washington not quite look themselves when they had to travel to Michigan. This team did not look themselves. And for as much hype that I gave them, because I thought they were going to be the sleeper, Damon Williams, just nothing. I mean, this was a very disappointing game. This was a game that when you look back they're going to kick themselves over. Losing to Michigan, you could say, okay, we lost to Michigan, we'll be fine. But when you lose to a Wisconsin team that, frankly, I thought was just there to finish out the season, like I said, they gave it up to their coach. They win their first Big Ten game, thanks to you, at home, 13-10. I mean, hell, you know what? The fans should rush the field because you probably didn't expect this 6 days ago. But Wisconsin goes in there. Wisconsin gets that win and pretty much eliminates Washington from any college football playoff scenario. I think even if they run the table, I don't see Washington making it with 3 losses. Not going to happen. No, not going to happen. Not in the Big Ten, not in the weaker Big Ten that's very top heavy. Middle of the pack and the bottom, they're okay. The top is great. The top, you're looking at the top 3 teams like, yeah, they're really good. But I don't think a 3-loss team, maybe if you're in the SEC, maybe. Let's be real. But I don't think a 3-loss Washington team is going to make it. I think Washington is now officially done. Oregon Ducks go to Kinnick, and they go to play Iowa, and they learn something that we all learned, that, you know what, that crowd is real. The close proximity of the crowd is real. The pink locker rooms, it's real. The bad weather, the football weather, it's real. Oregon playing at Kinnick, I believe, for the first time ever, and Oregon got the scare of their lives. Oregon survives. They survive Kinnick, and they do something like, look, for those who are like, oh, it's just Iowa. Look, Iowa had a chance to be one of those 4 teams, the 4th team as well. They probably lost out on their chance. Here's the thing. Everybody who's gone into Iowa has struggled. Indiana, if you remember, Indiana goes into Iowa, only scored, I believe, 20 points in Kinnick. Kinnick's a very tough place to play. Oregon could not even match the Indiana 20 points. Oregon wins the game 18-16. And like I said, it was a scare. They really couldn't pass the ball. Dante Moore, look, I think his Heisman Trophy campaign is probably over, especially after this game. He was able to use his legs, though, and I think that was more valuable, gaining 46 yards on the ground. That helped them out tremendously. Between him and Noah Whittingham's 118 yards on the ground, Oregon did, and they scratched and clawed and did everything that they had to do. They stayed in the college football playoff race. Now, kind of like Indiana, they're going to drop down. I got a feeling you're not going to get rewarded for playing a tough Iowa team on the road. They're going to look at the score, and Oregon's going to drop some spots in the college football poll that'll come out on Tuesday. But that's okay if you're Oregon. You're still there. You'll have chances to pop back up and win. Oregon's their remaining schedule. You're looking at Minnesota. You're going to have USC at home, and then you go at Washington. So you'll have a chance to really get back up. You stumbled a little bit, but you know what? The beauty of it is, Oregon Ducks fans, you did not lose the game. That's what matters the most, is you didn't lose. And look, anybody who's been to Kinnick can tell you, tough place to play. I mean, you know, it's a great tradition, but from the first quarter wave to the children at the hospital. But, man, the crowd is right on top of you. The weather was not conducive for Oregon's game. It was more conducive to the defense that Phil Parker has with that Iowa defense. And, look, Iowa gave it their best shot. And I thought for a second Iowa was going to pull this game out. But Oregon, Dante Moore made the right amount of plays. They got the victory. And I guess in the end, That's all that really counts. Let me go to Friday night. Friday night, USC still remains in the hunt to get that final spot. USC goes and on the road, and USC defeats Friday night. No, USC hosted Northwestern in LA at the Coliseum. USC wins 38-17, but that's not what everybody's talking about. Lincoln Riley thought he found a loophole, but the Big Ten has since come out and says, we're going to close that damn loophole right here, right now. For those who don't know, here's what happened. It was ingenious. It was creative. And USC and Lincoln Riley said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have our punter, who wears number 80, and Sam Johnson, and we're going to have the backup quarterback change his number. So they changed it in the program. They thought they took all the right steps, the precautionary steps, and it wasn't like they changed it and they didn't tell anybody. They did. So the backup quarterback in Sam Hewitt goes out, and it's a trick play. He just throws the ball 10 yards. They pick up the first down, fake punt, except it's not the punter. He's wearing the punter's number, but it wasn't the punter. Very smart, very ingenious. I'll give you points for creativity, Lincoln Riley, except now the Big Ten has come out and said, okay, that should have been a penalty. Why? The penalty is this. It should have been an unsportsmanlike penalty on USC. It wasn't the fake punt, but it was the unsportsmanlike penalty on USC. Let me explain. You can have in college, you can have multiple players wear the same numbers because there's over 100 players on the team, so some numbers will overlap. The problem with USC is you can't have people playing the same position wearing the same number for that deceptive purposes. And because Ewert was listed as a punter and he went in to punt the ball, well, because Ewert went in to punt the ball, the same number as your punter, that's your unsportsmanlike penalty. That should have been a flag. That should have been 15 yards, and they probably would have not have gone forward on that fourth down. Look, the referees blew it, but let's be honest, it was good deception on Lincoln Riley's part. You probably had that one arrow in your quiver. You probably wasted it, I think, against Northwestern. I would have probably broke that out in a game where you absolutely need it later down the line when you're going to go up against, I believe they still got a game against Oregon. Maybe that's when I break that play out, but they didn't. And because they didn't, they've used it. Yeah, they finish up the year at Oregon and at Oregon, and then they have UCLA at home. They run the table, and they'll get a spot. They'll get one of that fourth spot for the Big Ten because of their record with just 2 losses. That would take them to 10-2. Plus, USC is a brand name. Let's be real. It's why Notre Dame is going to make the college football playoffs, because Notre Dame is a brand name. Notre Dame does not have any quality victories whatsoever, but they're Notre Dame. And I guess technically they'll say, well, USC is our quality victory, which I guess, but that's a little bit of a, are you sure about that? But they will. But yeah, USC runs the table. USC will get that spot, but just wanted to point it out to you that, that's what happened in the game. That's what everybody's talking about in that game. And I'll give Lincoln Riley credit. It was creative. I'll never downplay creativity. He stretched the rules. This wasn't like spyglasses and cheating and things. He stretched the rules, and he forced the Big Ten to say, no, we're going to close that loophole, and we're going to make our referees enforce that rule. So USC and probably Michigan. Michigan was on a bye week this week. Those two are the 2 teams in the Big Ten that are still vying for that 4th spot. If USC or Michigan does not run the table, the Big Ten will only get 3 teams. Now they'll have, right now, Ohio State is sitting there at number 1. Ohio State defeated Purdue, was it 34-10? And they went to Purdue. And Ohio State was just very methodical. That's just what they are. They have not really been challenged all season long. That's not their fault. Julian Saying is probably entering into the Heisman Trophy. He's a candidate. As a matter of fact, in my opinion, it's probably going to be the winner of the Indiana-Ohio State Big Ten championship game. Whichever quarterback shines the most in that game, I think will get the late votes. And I think that will be the person who will hoist the trophy in New York and be your Heisman Trophy winner for the 2025 season. But Sayans has this team humming. And Ohio State, as I say, they're not challenged. It's just very methodical, just ass kicking after ass kicking after ass kicking, if you want to be for real about it. I don't know who's going to challenge them until they get to the Big Ten title game. But Michigan has the opportunity. If Sherrone Moore and Michigan can do something for the 5th straight year, and that's defeat the Buckeyes in Ann Arbor, Michigan will, because of their brand name and because they will only have 2 losses and only 1 in conference, Michigan will end up there. And on top of that, if the tiebreakers are correct, they will play Indiana in Indianapolis, not the Buckeyes, but the Wolverines, because they will have a tiebreaker over the Buckeyes, each with 1 loss in the Big Ten. So just saying, I got to look to see exactly how the tie-breaking goes, because if Oregon finishes with 1 loss between Michigan and Oregon, one of those 2 teams will end up there, but I know it won't be the Buckeyes. So a lot's on the line for the game at the end of the year for the Wolverines. If you want to be that 4th team, you hold serve and you beat the Buckeyes for 5 straight years. On top of that, you beat the Buckeyes. They may be talking about firing Ryan Day again. And Ryan Day may get the Ed Orgeron treatment of, yeah, so what have you done for me lately? I know you won the national title, but you keep losing games to that team up north. Ryan Day's job, believe it or not, even after winning a national title some 11 months ago, he'd be on the hot seat because Buckeye fans excused it last year because he won the national title. But those were probably the most sleepless 3 weeks that he had in the process of winning it, because I think had he lost it, he was going to get fired, because Buckeye fans Ohio State fans just ain't having it and losing. Because here's the thing. If they lose again, you'll have an entire Buckeye team of any players who played there for 5 years or more who have never beaten the Michigan Wolverines. And for Michigan, you want that to continue. Why? Like I said before, you want that final spot. Right now, the Big Ten's only going to get 3 spots. Ohio State, they're in. Indiana, they're in. Oregon, they're in. But other than that, it's not. I think what you're going to end up seeing, the breakdown to me, you're probably going to end up seeing 5 SEC teams, 3 Big Ten teams, 1 ACC team, 1 Big 12 team, Notre Dame, and a group of 5 team. So for the Big Ten, if you're trying to steal a bid from one of the SEC teams, you're going to need a brand name team to do it. As I stated, there's only 2 teams that are still, in my world, eligible for that to happen. That's Michigan, and that's also USC. If neither one of those happen, just be prepared. The Big Ten will have to go in there with only 3 teams and hope that those 3 teams will be enough that of the 3, one of them can rise up and win the national title and keep the trophy within the Big Ten, because they've won it for the last 2 seasons. Ohio State looks like that machine, guys. And just Jeremiah Smith, I think he should be sitting in New York as well. I mean, he's the best wide receiver in college football, bar none. Look, Ryan Williams, the Alabama receivers, had some injuries, not really playing that much. Jeremiah Smith is just uncoverable. Jeremiah Smith is always open. And a lot of times receivers will swear up and down, I'm open, just throw me the ball. No, he's always open. That it would be kind of cool, because in the final tally comes out, there should be at least 3 Big Ten players sitting in New York as Heisman Trophy candidates. Fernando Mendoza, he should be there. Julian Sand, he should be there. And his teammate, Jeremiah Smith, they should be there. And I think it's what makes the Big Ten so top heavy, because those 2 teams, and unfortunately they don't play during the season. That's why I think a lot of people outside of the state of Michigan and Michigan Wolverine fans are hoping for that collision course Indiana, Ohio State for all the marbles in Indianapolis, which technically will be a home game for Indiana because Indianapolis is just 45 minutes away from their campus. It'll be a sea of red in there since both teams wear red. It's going to be a must-watch game. And I'll be honest with you, I don't cover either team, but I've really contemplated actually getting a media credential and going down to watch that game in person because I think that game is going to be the best championship game of the day. Looking at how those two teams play, it'll be the first challenge for Ohio State, in my opinion, going up against the defense that is Indiana. Now, look, Penn State showed that the Indiana defense ain't all it was cracked up to be. The Penn State showed that they found ways to run, but I think that was a lot of pride for the Nittany Lions. Ohio State has that pride. If you're Indiana, how do you cover Jeremiah Smith? Can you get pressure on Saying? And for the Buckeyes, you've only had one tough game, and that was at the beginning of the year. That was against Texas. And after that, you really haven't been challenged. What happens when, Sands gets punched in the mouth? What happens when Sands tastes his own blood? What happens when you have some adversity? The good news is Indiana can at least say we've suffered some adversity and we bounced back. Oregon can say the same thing. Ohio State can't. And sometimes you got to go through that battle to know what you have. It's easy when your team is always winning. But what happens when they're not? What happens when things get a little tight? What happens when all of a sudden it's not that same easy win? We're going to find out. But I am looking so forward to that Big Ten championship game if those two meet. But as I stated, a lot can happen in between. Heck, you could have an Indiana-Michigan Big Ten championship game. Heck, you could even have an Oregon-Michigan championship game, a game that nobody's even thinking about right now. Depends on what happens at the end of the year in these final couple of weeks. But we will wait and see. It's going to be an exciting ride. Stick with me. I'll take you all the way to whoever hoists that trophy and get you prepared for the Heisman Trophy and get you prepared for the college football playoffs. But for now, I'm your host, Rico Beard. Thanks for watching the 5 Star Zone. Keep liking and subscribing and telling your friends.